What's up, Navigating Academia family? This is your buddy, Dr. J. Phoenix Singh, your personal academic mentor, coming at you with episode 7 of 8 when it comes to my planned series on how it is that you can build wealth as an academic. So many people think that just because you're in academia and you are overworked and underpaid, especially for doing things voluntarily, like serving on editorial review boards, helping to organize conferences, you name it, that it means that it's like impossible to be able to build wealth, let alone transgenerational wealth. But I can tell you that that's just not the case. You just have to work different steps, okay, that do work for anybody in any other career field as well, but there's certain tiny modifications we need to make for those of us who actually have elected to be able to adopt academic careers, okay? So here we go. This is part number 7. We've had 6 parts before. Be sure to comprehensively watch those videos to be able to go through the tips. Tip number 1 was get a killer skill set that's resistant to recessions and temporal changes. Number 2 is don't just be an asset, but build an asset that you can leverage. Number 3, personality-wise, in terms of your character, is to be naive, to be humble, and unflinchingly confident. Not arrogant, not prideful, but confident, right? The next one, in terms of things not to do, right? So beware of your drug of choice, whatever that may be it food, be it sex, be it an actual illicit substance, whatever it happens to be. The next one is don't worry about, all this nonsense out there about you have to have a mentor. You have to have a business plan from the beginning that is like for the first 5 years. You haven't even built anything. You haven't sold anything. You don't know if anybody wants your stuff in the first place. Just build the business plan. Take 3 months, build the business plan. Unnecessary, right? And then also self-help books with curse words in the title, right? Just these books are very well-intentioned usually. It's for the authors to be able to make a buck with the ghostwriter and paying a whole bunch of money to be able to get them listed as number 1 on Wall Street Journal's list or Washington Post list or any of these lists, New York Times list, okay? There are strategic ways financially to do it if you put a few $100,000 in, okay? And then finally, you don't need a graduate degree like an MBA, a doctorate in leadership, and so forth to be able to be successful in business. These are things you can teach yourself and that you can learn, practically speaking, by just going through the process of developing a business on the side and maybe even transitioning into it full-time eventually if you'd like to, right? And you can utilize all those wonderful skills that you've learned in academia. Because the thing is that by reading the peer-reviewed research literature, you know the hottest, newest stuff. And the average person out there in business cannot read, they can't make heads or tails of the academic research literature. So if you become a conscientious consumer of it, you can unleash and unlock the power of the information in those publications, okay? And actually develop something cutting edge and new that people didn't even realize they needed in the first place, okay? So, part number 7 is today. It is one of the least sexy, and yet I would argue of all 8, the number 1 most important point that I am going to make. And this is to build a budget, factor in taxes on the income that you're generating, either via capital gains, this is in the U.S., capital gains or ordinary income, and then live on less than you make for as long as you can, okay? That is it, okay? I will say it one more time. Build a budget. Figure out your overall revenue that's coming in, your income that's coming in, both from ordinary income in terms of that's how it's taxed. This is ordinary income versus capital gains taxes. Maybe you've owned an asset, be it real estate or be it stocks where you've owned it for at least 1 year, okay, before selling it, so it's taxed at a lower rate, a capital gains rate, right? And then the most important thing is live on significantly less than you make for as long as you can, okay? Let's pick a nice round number of let's just say $50,000, right? Because in academia, I'd love to say $100,000, but I'm probably overshooting for most people, right? So $50,000, right? Usually, you're going to be making 65 to 75K or whatever starting salary, but this depends on all kinds of factors. So let's just say 50,000 because it's a nice round number, okay? So if it's $50,000, I want you guys saving at least 15 to 25% of your income, okay? And that's after tax, right? But of course, in the U.S., you want to make sure that you're using things like, max out your 401k until the match rate is out. After the match rate has been matched by the company or the university, you're done, okay? Take the rest that you can match in your Roth IRA, put it into the Roth IRA, okay? Because you're getting taxed on that money now, but then you get tax-free growth, okay? And then don't flip and touch it, right? Don't touch it. If you don't know anything about stocks, you don't know what to do, there's a stock ticker called SPY. Okay, a lot of people refer to it as spiders. All it is the 500 best companies. Dow Jones Industrial Complex, okay, which is DIA, they call it diamonds, right? That's the 30 biggest companies in the United States. But the 500 best companies, they change around about once a year, right? And literally all it is an index fund. You're going to get a dividend of 2 or less percent, and literally just put it in there and don't touch it. Okay, if you want to be part of the stock market and you don't know what to do, that's the best thing that you can do. Don't be kind of trying to do all this crazy stuff or investing in Dogecoin and, but I could make $1 million or whatever off Shiba Inu or whatever it is. Don't be silly, okay? Take the very slow but sure route. Dollar average in every month. Make sure part of your, and you can even do this with your bank. You can talk to them, right? Let's say that you're making $1,000 a week, right? They can take of that $1,000, right, between $150 to $250, 15 to 25%, and automatically, right, put it into a different account, and you can tell your banker, right, if they have some kind of a brokerage, like Fidelity, I use Fidelity, right, they can automatically put it into SPY for you, okay? Maybe you like technology, Q. Maybe you like small cap companies, IWM. Maybe you like international companies, EEM, okay? SPY for the best big companies, right? Best small companies, IWM, Russell 2000 Index, right? International companies, EEM, right? Tech companies, Q. If you're going to hold this stuff for like forever, Q will usually outperform, like almost always, if you take a look at the data. Okay, you want an app to be able to use? Yahoo Finance, and also I want you to utilize what's called Yahoo Finance and also StockTwits, which is kind of like Twitter, except not Twitter. It's Twitter for nerds like myself, right, who love the stock stuff, okay? Don't try to be clever. A lot of people want to be clever. The overwhelming preponderance, over 96% of day traders end up losing money. It's literally just like pulling the handle on, a gambling machine. That's what it is, right? Don't do it. It's not smart, okay? Slow, sustained growth, slow, sustained investments, you will be a millionaire. As an academic, it's not even a question, right? But you won't be an academic if you spend all your money. Okay, so the best way that you can do this is the very non-sexy thing of building a budget. Okay, and the way that you build a budget, it took me 2 years to be able to learn how to budget properly. I read everything I could get my hands on. I thought about every teeny tiny little expense. I factored all of it into a set of assumptions. What I do is once a quarter, right? So at the end of March, at the end of April, May, June, at the end of July, August, September, and then at the end of the year, the final day of the year, literally those days for me are like tax days, right? And I pay my quarterly taxes in the United States, and I go through literally each and every expense that I have in a whole bunch of different credit cards and bank accounts and these sorts of things, and I make sure that I know that I'm within my budget. Why? Because longer term, you will be able to live like no other human being in academia. I promise you. Right? But you have to work the steps, not be clever. F the whole FOMO nonsense, okay? Other people are going to have cooler stuff than you at first. This is why I say it's really important to be able to live on less than you make, as significant as you can for as long as you can. Why? Because once you upgrade your lifestyle, and instead of eating out 2 times a week, you eat out 3 times a week, which doesn't seem like that big of a deal, but eating out one extra day, one extra meal a week or whatever, if you have kids, right, that's $100 a week, that's $5,200 a year, right? If you grab okay, here's my phone. I use an app called Compounder. Daria's on the back. She's a cutie pie, right? So Compounder, right? So let's say, I right now I'm 35, so I've got 30 years until retirement. The average market return over any 20-year period is 8.3%, and my initial contribution is going to be $5,200 a year. Okay, and that is going to, let's see, going to compound up. Okay, so literally, if I just take $5,200 1 year, just this year, right, and then I don't touch it, by the time I retire, that will end up being $57,000 with compound interest if I only put it into SPY, right? So literally just one meal, right? And so imagine doing that just for 2 years. That's it. You go and eat out 2 times a week instead of eating out 1 time a week. Oh, sorry, you end up going out 2 times a week instead of 3 times a week, right? So that would mean that you're going to have $114,000 extra dollars, right, by the time that you retire after tax. That's insane. Okay, that is insane, right? And a lot of people don't realize that these tiny things or whatever can add up significantly, right? It doesn't mean that you can't have fun. You can have a huge amount of fun, right? But have fun responsibly. It's not fun being a responsible adult. Sorry, right? Sorry, not sorry, right? But this is something to take into consideration. So what do you put in your budget? I've got my budget open right now. So the things that I personally put in there is the cost, and I do annual costs, okay? So of my health insurance, of my auto and property insurance, of my property taxes, of my vision insurance, right? Of my dental insurance, of my disability insurance. I have a personal trainer once a week, so I factor that in. I've got other healthcare costs, going to see chiropractors, if I ever want to go and see a therapist. I've got a kind of a big number for that. Not a big number, but I've got a number to encompass all those things, right? Food, how much money do you want to spend per day? Multiply it out, right? Do not take into consideration eating out. That'll come later, okay? Rent, including utilities. This past year I had to move, so I had moving expenses. Gas, right, for my car, petrol for my car, how often I have to load it up, and on average what I found over the year of the last 12 months, how much money it cost me to be able to put money in the tank. Memberships, right, Apple Music, Hulu, gym membership, all that kind of stuff. Housing products and personal care products, these are things people don't think about. Shampoo, deodorant, this kind of stuff, toothbrushes, toothpaste, bleach to be able to clean, buying a mop, all these sorts of things. Not sexy at all, right? Not fun to think about. You may even think it's ridiculous to think about. I did initially, right? Maybe it's something where you want somebody twice a month to be able to come and clean your place. What service you use, how much money does it cost, factor in the tip that you're going to pay the people usually, right? Gifts. Right? So for example, for Daria, at least for Daria, I have to factor in things like birthday gift, Christmas gift, and other tiny things during the year. I want to take her to a really nice restaurant for Valentine's Day and buy her some flowers or some balloons and get her a little gift. And it's one of these things, right? It is what it is. You do what you do. And in the country that she's from, New Year's is a really big deal. So you want to make sure that you budget in money for those sorts of occasions to make sure that they're going to feel special and appreciated, because they are special to you and you do appreciate them, right? Dry cleaning. I wear a lot of stuff or whatever that needs to be dry cleaned to keep it in good stead. Keeping that in mind. Also, new clothes is very important. Parking fees in cities and stuff are absurd, right? I was in New York City or whatever a few months ago, and literally it was like $120 or something. It was ridiculous for parking. Entertainment and vacation. So this or whatever would include eating out. If you enjoy taking vacations, how many vacations do you like to take? How much money? Think about all the practical stuff, right? So the round trip airfare, maybe you may have luggage fees. I want you to think about the cost of lodging while you're there, and I want you to have like a daily per diem. Some days you're going to spend a lot less. Other days you're going to go out, you're going to have a blast, you're going to spend a lot more. But just think about overall how much it's going to be, okay? After that, you're going to have what I refer to as a happiness budget, which is basically just a miscellaneous budget, right? So how much money are you willing to have? Number one is a margin of error for everything above. And then I also want you to take into consideration stuff like, you just want to go, like Daria loves art. If she wants to go and buy an easel and some canvases and watercolor set, have fun, go and do it or whatever, right? We don't need to talk about it as a couple. Like, just go do it. For me, I like video games, right? As Daria knows, like, I always say that I like video games, but that I don't end up playing them, right? Or if I want to buy like business books and these sorts of things, I just want to go and get them, right? And that can come from my piece of the happiness budget, right? So I do recommend that as well. But then you have to take into consideration all of your income coming from different places. And I want you to set it up in terms of the income coming from each major revenue source you have that counts as ordinary income. And then I also want you to set it up where you have a different column for everything that's capital gains that you're getting. For example, selling stocks after 1 year, okay? And remember, there's different types of dividends. They're qualified dividends and they're just ordinary income dividends. So you need to take a look. You can talk with a CPA or a financial planner, somebody from your brokerage. They can help you out with all this stuff usually for free, and I'm all about that. Okay? So take into consideration what's the total income that you end up having. I want you to subtract any business expenses because I run several companies. I have a lot of business expenses. Okay? If you are self-employed, right, then you need to pay at least half of Social Security tax and half of Medicare tax. For these things, it's a huge kind of, pain in the butt, but luckily those things are tax deductible, right, if you work for yourself. Also, if you want to invest anything in, like I have a SEP IRA, for me, putting money into a Roth IRA would not make financial sense, so I put into a SEP IRA or a KIOG, which is, excuse me, an individual 401k, right? I also invest in an HSA account. If you don't know what that is, take a look at it. It's a health savings account that can help you out a lot in terms of tax-deferred growth. So then after I take all those deductions into consideration from my total income, I end up with the total taxable income. Then I have to take into consideration using that present year's federal and state tax brackets. So I have to take those things into consideration. Keep in mind that deductions really are only going to help you out when it comes to federal tax. There's some states in the U.S. that don't have any kind of state income tax. The ones that do, usually they could not care less about your deductions at the federal level. Okay? Excuse me. Okay. And then in the U.S., we also have Social Security tax that you have to pay, Medicare tax that you have to pay. These are things that, you have to pay, at least part of non-tax deductible if you are running your own thing, right? If you're running your own company, all right? So then you'll have the total amount of taxes owed. And so at the end of the day, you can take your total income, you can add to it any income that you got from investments that you ended up selling. You can subtract all those personal life expenses that you need just to be able to live. Business expenses, you can subtract your IRA contributions, you can subtract the taxes that you paid, you can subtract, and in some cases you'll have some additional after-tax income that you can add to that, and that is going to provide you with what I personally refer to as your profit for the year, okay? And whatever that profit is, to the extent possible, you should reinvest it, right? And you should let that nest egg grow. I do not believe that the 4% rule is absolute. Some people say it's a little bit less, a little bit more in terms of how much you can reliably take out of your savings on an annualized basis. But I believe that it's a great rule of thumb, right? Like, even if I am not running one of my companies full-time as CEO, I will still be involved in my companies and getting income from them because I love them. They're my babies, right? And sometimes your babies become teenagers and adults and they end up leaving, right? But they're all still very close to your heart. So I'll still be involved with them, but just in a different capacity, right? And I want you to do this for as long as you can, because my father used to always tell me that in terms of getting a wife, he always said, you can always take her from flying in economy class to first class, but it's going to be really hard to take her from flying in first class all the way back to economy class. And there's a lot of truth there. I tell Daria all the time, it's really, really important to me that I make sure that we have a sustainable lifestyle, not a lifestyle that goes super up and then super down and it's just all over the place. She's not going to feel secure. I'm not going to feel stable. It's really bad, okay? For the sake of your relationship, for the sake of your mental health, build a budget. The numbers that you have may not be correct, okay? But I want you to come up with at least some assumptions and then modify those assumptions on a quarterly and, if not quarterly, a semi-annual basis, okay? So that is the most important tip of all 8 of these. If you want to generate wealth, this is the non-sexy, most important way to be able to do it. Thank you very much for watching. If you need help, obviously, book an appointment down below. I'll help you out.